might be a Viking or a Saxon or a Roman, but tell me, do you like 'em? Would you sex 'em? Would you bone 'em? Would you go to bed with King Ethelred? Would you bonk William the Conqueror up in the sheets with Samuel Pepys? Mussolini was a mean, he led a fascist insurrection, but does he make you creamy? Does he give you an erection? Would you pork Richard the Duke of York? Does a boner start when you think of Bonaparte? Are you sexually aroused at the thought of Pol Pot? Historical hot or not?
Hello and welcome to Historical Hot or Not, the only history podcast that looks at the life and times of history's most celebrated figures and asks, yes, but would you? It's the pod parchment that puts the ass in classical antiquity, the thick in Paleolithic, the nasty in Han Dynasty. I'm your co-host Aidan McCaffrey. I am not a historian, and this is...
Catherine Mather.
Who's also not a historian.
No.
But we're comedians, aren't we, Kath?
We are, and, you know, it's the age-old question, isn't it? Sure, that dictator was a bad person, but would you bang him?
Exactly. We've all looked at those thirst trap photos of Stalin in his youth and said, I don't care whether he was a low-level gangster or what. He's getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd teach him a lesson.
Exactly. We've all ranked the 6 wives of Henry VIII in order of hotness, Cleves being at the top, obviously.
Who hasn't? I guess he had to marry them, but we don't have to marry them.
We can just objectify them.
Yeah, fucking run.
Fucking run. We decided it's okay to objectify people who have been dead since at least 1940. I think that's the rule.
Yeah, and also, this is not sincere.
Oh, well. Speak for yourself.
Okay.
I mean everything I'm about to say for the next hour.
Fair enough. Bring me my potential suitors.
Yes. Oh, well, we should explain what the format is.
Yeah, we should totally do that.
Yeah, before we barrel into it.
Yeah.
Historical hot or not. So in each episode, Kath and I will take it in turns to propose to each other a historical figure on a fictional historical dating app we've made up called eTrothed. And yeah, I'll just say I will explain the life and times of a person, and then at the end, Kath will decide whether they should bang him or not. And then we'll do the opposite next week. Does that sound good?
Yeah. I'll bring a lady one next week.
Exactly. And, who knows, it doesn't have to be as heteronormative. We can mix it up down the line. There's some ladies I'd be interested to propose to you, and I'm sure vice versa.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Kath, on what number date is it okay to have sex? 29 BC or 1500 AD?
Oh, God. So BC is a longer time ago than the other one, isn't it?
Right. It doesn't bode well for a history podcast that we've kicked this off and I've thrown some basically Route 1 historical terms at you, BC and AD, and you're already like, which one's which?
Oh my God.
BC is before Christ.
Okay, I'm going to say AD, Anno Domini, see?
So you do? Oh, you do.
I do.
We're not as thick as we make out.
Yeah, I go for that one because I feel like they will be more invested in whether I have a nice time or not.
Why? How have you come to that conclusion?
Because it's less long ago.
You see, I would have gone for 29 BC on the grounds that the Catholic Church, in fact, all the Abrahamic religions haven't started yet, have they? So they haven't clamped down their rules on, what you can put your dick in and how often you can put your dick in and all that. So I kind of feel like 29 BC more of a free for all.
Yeah, that is a very good point that I had not considered. Quite clearly, had not considered.
Hey, there's no right or wrong answer.
There isn't.
I just think 29 BC. Get yourself down to your local bacchanalia and participate in a street orgy with no class divisions, which is basically my main kink.
Because I went to Pompeii recently.
I'm so glad you said Pompeii and not open street orgy then.
And the open street orgy that they have at Pompeii. But there's the bathhouses there, and my God, Aidan, they were horny motherfuckers.
I've been there.
Have you? Have you seen the pictures on the walls?
Yeah.
They are, my God. And there are so many dicks just carved into everything.
What's the dick to fanny ratio like at the Pompeii baths?
are we talking legitimate artwork, or are we talking graffiti?
I think if it's on the wall, it counts.
So, actual, commissioned paintings, lot of minge. If we're talking about the curvature into brickwork by cheeky scamps, very much dicks. But I think that they are much easier and quicker to draw than a detailed vulva. So, if I had to, as a feminist, if I had to choose genitalia to carve into a wall, I would still choose a dick.
That's an interesting point, because it's just some very basic geometry, the old dick and balls, isn't it? Whereas, which is understandable from a very young age, and also I suspect a lot of graffiti is done by young men who may not have had a close-up look at the old vagina at that point.
Yeah, I'd be like, what is that? Is that an O drawn weird? Is that, I don't understand. Whereas a dick, it's very instantly recognisable.
It's universal. The penis is universal.
It is, and I just found it really lovely, actually, to be wandering the streets of an ancient city and just knowing that human nature never changes. Like, if we can draw a dick and balls somewhere, we will.
And we'll be able to do it forever. Have you got your eTrothed dating app ready?
I have. I've got it right here.
I'm sending you an eTrothed profile pic.
Yeah.
This is Tom. He is 52, and he is from Canterbury.
Okay. He's an older man.
Yep.
It is a drawing.
It's yes. He predates the photograph.
Okay. He does look to have a some kind of dagger, I would say, embedded into his skull.
Does that work for you?
I don't know, like, how much of a problem is it going to be? You know, am I going to get, if I try and kiss him, am I going to get nicked by it? Is he going to be whinging about it all the time?
No one likes a whinger, do they?
No, and he can't wear a hat either to cover it up. So it's not the hottest thing I've seen, I'll be honest with you, Aidan. His eyes look quite dark. Like, he looks like he's had a hard life. He's not a young 52. He looks
back then,
troubled.
people really they wore their age back then, whereas now
they did, and I mean, he's got a dagger in his head, so I guess it has been a hard life for him. Now,
well, not necessarily. As we got to discover, his life was okay, but just the very last bit of his life wasn't. I'd say last 5 minutes of his life, bit of a downer.
I think that is true of everyone, though.
This photo, it's not a photo, it's a painting. In this painting of Tom, he looks like, you know, that sort of fake dagger you could put through your head, and it goes around the back, and it looks like the plastic sword is going in one end and coming out the other.
Yeah.
Kind of like Steve Martin, yeah, I'm a wild and crazy guy. If you went on a date and someone showed up with one of those on, is that a yay or is that a yes or a no for you?
A fake one. Well, I guess, are we at a costume party? Would be my first question.
No, because that makes it too easy. I'm talking bar. You've gone on a date. He's shown up, and he's heard you're a comedian, so he's thought, I know what she'll bloody love.
Yeah.
And then he goes into his prop box and he pulls out the old fake sword through the head hat.
Well, I guess I'm already there. The truth. So
that's too revealing, Kath. If I ever set you up on a date and someone says, what's this going to be like? I'm going to say, if she's shown up, you are in luck, mate.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's the method way.
The bar is very low. So, I mean, I guess, again, it'd depend if he kept it on the whole time. I think I'd find that quite unattractive. Or I would really play along with it and take him to A&E.
Yes.
And then wait for 6 hours until a member of stressed out medical staff came I'd just be screaming and wailing the whole time. Like, you don't understand. He's got a knife in his head.
Nothing screams romance than wasting the time of health professionals in an already besieged and laboured health service.
Yeah, particularly because I work at a hospital. So, depending on which hospital I went to, I might know some of those staff that I'm fucking over.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, no, I don't think it would do it for me. But you know what? It might have a nice personality.
Well, let's explore the life. So the person who the picture is of is actually Thomas Becket. Do you know much about Thomas Becket?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, Thomas Becket's interesting because it feels like he doesn't feel that totemic, but having delved into his life, he was like absolutely huge in medieval times. He was like this massive cult figure. Thomas Becket was born in 1119 or 1120 in Cheapside. Those facts were probably pieced together later as part of the legend that emerged after his death. And he was born to a merchant and property owner. He had a decent education at Merton Priory. He spent a year in Paris. That year in Paris screams gap year at me.
It does, yeah. And I also love that with certain historical figures, we don't know when they were born. They have no idea when their birthday was. They're just like, he was born before now.
Because if you were on a date, that's got to be a turn-off. If you're like, when's your birthday? And you said, don't know. And you don't know your birthday. And he's like, I don't know my birth year because I'm wild.
I don't know, 11 something, or it doesn't matter. No, it does matter though. Age, at a certain point, age does matter.
Yeah, legally, I'm very much sure it matters.
Yeah, all of the men who are like, age doesn't matter, I'm like, oh, so you're fucking teenagers then. That's what you're doing, isn't it?
Exactly. He set his age range on the dating app to go 15 years younger, but no higher than himself. In fact, even worse, it ends 2 years before his age, and the bottom is 15 years below.
And I think his profile would say stuff like, no kids, no time wasters, no one who's been married before, no massive list of wants and nothing that is going for him.
He goes to Paris for a year. That very much feels like a gap year. He probably had some awkward sex in hostel bathrooms and then started every sentence for the next 10 years with, actually, when I was in Paris, much to the annoyance of everybody around him.
Only eating baguettes.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you don't know what a baguette is? I'll explain what a baguette is, actually, because I ate quite a lot when I was in Paris. Paris very much the Koh Samui of 12th century Europe there, as far as gap years goes. Anyway, so this guy's he's actually born into a wealthy family. He can afford to do this stuff. How do you feel about dating posh boys, Kath?
It's not for me, I'll be honest. It's a bit of a turn-off.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I think that your experience of the world is quite different, isn't it?
Yeah, because I like to think, we could approach romance in a classless way. But I actually think in practice it's quite hard because you tend to gravitate towards people who have similar interests to you. And, I have no class prejudice, but I would be lying if I said I dated many people who were not middle class like me. In fact, in my Tinder year, I was on Tinder for a year and I went on about 24 dates over that time, or 24 women on dates with. And honestly, I think only one of them was probably working class, which makes me sound like a bellend, but it wasn't like there was a screening process. It's just feels like who you gravitate towards. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I accidentally went on a date with somebody who was quite well to do, but he was northern, so I assumed he wouldn't be, and that's a classic mistake. Never make that mistake. And we had no reference points at all in common, and it was awkward.
Well, that's the thing. The one working class person I dated, and this will not be true of all working class people, of course, but one of the reasons it didn't go well was I said I don't drink, and then because at the time I wasn't drinking, and then at every single moment of quiet throughout the date, she would just say, I can't believe you don't drink. And I was like, yep, I don't drink. And I don't know, it's just strange. But,
I thought you weren't going to bring the time we went on a date up, Aidan, but so soon into the first episode.
I'm still bitter about it. Why can't you get your head around my teetotalness, Kath?
I just can't believe it.
Just can't believe it.
So Thomas has come back from Paris. He's wearing a striped shirt, a beret. He's got a garland of garlic and onions around his neck. It's beginning to smell.
Yeah, and he's just pissing everybody off with his talk of Paris. But there's a plot twist. Hugh Cath are not into rich boys, but that might be okay because at this point, his dad becomes skint. He loses all his money. And young Tom, has to get a job as a clerk. So actually, he's sort of come down a class. He's just got to get a job like everyone else, which is quite humbling, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I want to happen to all of the rich people.
Yeah, just be brought down a peg or two.
Yeah, and also, like, cause I think we all know that person who never had to get a job, and then they go out from, they finish their masters, and they're like 23 and have absolutely no employment experience at all. Who is going to hire someone at in their early 20s who has never had a job before?
Your dad's friends. That's who. Which brings us on to the next thing. His dad, Gilbert, may have been poor, but he was able to still open some doors, and he got Tom a job working for Theobald of Bec, who was then the Archbishop of Canterbury. According to the British Museum, Becket was described by his contemporaries as intelligent, charming, and authoritative. Through his work with the Archbishop, he rose through the ecclesiastical ranks and ended up being recommended by Theobald for the vacant post of Lord Chancellor in 1155 by King Henry II, great-grandson of Billy the Conqueror and husband of, get this, Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Oh my God, Ellie. Now, Eleanor of Aquitaine I don't know much about beyond her being the wife of King Henry II, but I will say this. That is a fit name. It really is. Ellie Aqua, that would be my stage name.
Yeah, exactly. You'd definitely be, if your Twitter avatar would be Ellie Aqua 90 or something. But just, if you said, Aidan, I want to set you up with someone, she's called Eleanor of Aquitaine, I'd be stiff as a board right off the bat. I wouldn't even need to see an image of her. I'd be like, that name is so hot.
And it sounds like she would be maybe doing like a burlesque act where she gets trapped in a vat in a big old tank of water, in a very revealing leather bikini.
Yes.
And then you'd be like, oh my God, she's drowning, and she isn't. She just comes out beautiful and sexy, and I'm in. I choose that one.
Well, we have not decided whether we're going to bang Becket yet, but we've clearly both decided. We've both decided on very little information that we would both bang Eleanor of Aquitaine. Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to Google her now and see if I can find a picture of her.
Well, I've already done this. She is quite hot, actually.
Is she? Oh my God! How do you spell Eleanor?
You can play along at home, people. Google Eleanor of Aquitaine.
You are not going to believe this, right? The top 3 things that came up, we've got Eleanor Tomlinson, actress. Second one, Eleanor of Aquitaine.
If she knew back in the 12th century that her legacy would be second on Google searches, she'd have died happy. According to the British Museum, Becket embraced life in the royal court. He is said by his contemporary biographers to have enjoyed vast wealth, throwing lavish parties, decorating his residence with beautiful furnishings, and making numerous journeys to France on his own ships. According to lawliberty.org, his old friend John of Salisbury said, having gone from middle-class Londoner to Henry's Chancellor, Guy relates that Becket was eager to convince the aristocrats around him that he belonged. His consumption was conspicuous, even acquiring a travelling zoo to entertain guests. Wow. Are you into this flamboyant display of wealth? It reminds me, actually, of, did you watch The Tinder Swindler?
Yeah.
Because that was clearly a lot of women were getting sucked into the sort of, that high-flying lifestyle. It feels like Beckett's sort of playing that card a little bit here.
It's a little bit garish, isn't it? And I think I would enjoy vast wealth as well. But I'm just interested, I wonder what a travelling zoo would have been at those times. Because it's guaranteed not what we would think of as a zoo. Right.
That's a good point, because I did imagine a modern zoo, but actually, if you think about travel limitations at the time and the sort of size of the Western world, we could just be talking a sheep, a cow, and a dog.
Yeah. Behold, the magnificent Pigeon.
Yeah, exactly. You show up on a date, he's there with his fake sword through his head, and he goes, I've got a zoo, and he just points to some farmyard animals. This feels like this date isn't going well.
Yeah, that's a parakeet, pal. Look at its beautiful plumage.
Exactly. I will say, there's lots of twists in his life. He started poor, his dad lost the money, he became middle class, or I guess that didn't exist back then, but he had to get a job. Very into showing off all of his stuff, all of his wealth. But halfway through his life, he gets into asceticism. And this is, according to Wikipedia, a lifestyle characterized by abstinence from sensual pleasures. Various individuals have also attempted an ascetic lifestyle to free themselves from addictions, some of them particular to modern life, such as alcohol, tobacco, drugs, entertainment, sex, and food. So he actually does sort of become fairly humble. He goes, no, I'm doing this wrong. I'm doing life wrong. I need to quit the sex, quit the fags, and be teetotal. I need to be Aidan. That's what he wants to be.
He Marie Kondo's his life.
Exactly. So that's what happens. Anyway, Henry II, he wants to exercise greater authority over the church as well as the state. And he appoints Thomas both Chancellor and Archbishop of Canterbury. That's 2 jobs in one. Kath, how do you feel about workaholics? Is that a red flag?
I don't know. I mean, I think as comedians, we're no stranger to the 2 jobs in one. I don't think I've ever just had one job. So, good on the lad for the hustle. But they both sound like jobs that you could just do one of them and have enough, right?
Well, the Chancellor, I looked into this. The main thing the Chancellor at the time has to do is look after the sort of wax seal that they use to pass laws.
One wax seal.
Yeah, it's not like you're looking after loads. It just feels like pop that in your pocket, get on with your job being the Archbishop of Canterbury.
That's true.
Yeah.
What does an archbishop do?
The current Archbishop of Canterbury is the head of the Church of England. At the time, it's actually part of the Catholic Church because the Church of England has not been established yet. Essentially representing the Church in England. The Archbishop of Canterbury was the one who had to crown the king and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. So it's like, here is the wax seal, here is the crown. You could just keep hold of those, friend.
Yes. They were also responsible for collecting all the monies that were owed to the king, so effectively like a tax collector as well.
Oh, okay, so he's like a bailiff.
Exactly. Henry tried to pass a set of laws called the Constitutions of Clarendon. Then these laws were designed to bring clergymen subject to the king's law rather than church law. So this is a weird quirk of the time. If you were part of the clergy and you murdered someone, you were defrocked, and that was it. Whereas if you weren't a member of the clergy, you were then subject to the king's law and you got murdered and stuff. And Henry wanted to unify this and bring them under the king's law.
Yeah, I mean, that is fair. I support that.
Well, I thought I did, but then when I thought about it, I thought, well, hang on, that means I support state executions, which I don't. So weirdly, defrocking a priest is closer to my moral worldview than... But that also feels way too light. Give us that dog collar back. I cannot believe you killed someone. That feels too light for murder.
All I can think of is getting defrocked is like getting debagged. So just having them on that, the podium, they're gonna get hung, but instead a guy in a hood just pulls their pants down.
Yeah. It's too
no!
light. Oh dear, I've been dekegged. And now everyone can see my cock and balls. Oh, damn, I definitely won't kill again. This was absolutely humiliating. No, I think I am on the king's side here. Although I don't think you should kill people for murder.
No, but I think that's a separate thing. I don't think that... Because, I mean, we've all seen what happens when you allow men in positions of power in the church to just do as they will.
Exactly.
So I think that, it should be equal. But just because it's equal, perhaps we shouldn't be murdering everybody.
Becket wouldn't let him do it. He was like, no, I'm not allowing you to pass these laws. And this pissed off Henry II, who summoned Tom, ordered him to forfeit all of his property. That's his zoo gone, straight off the bat. Yeah. He's just like, give me that dog, sheep and that cow. You cannot be trusted with this, for God's sake.
You imagine the king just trying to work out how to look after a monkey. Why did I take his property from him?
There's a real sitcom in this, isn't there, Kath? Just Henry II, in the period directly after he's taken all of Thomas Becket's property, just being like, why the fuck is there a zoo in my court? And why is that zoo a shit zoo?
Trying to get a tiger off his throne. Please, yes. I need to sit down.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be a tiger. It'd just be something rubbish, like an alpaca.
Cat.
Come on. Tom fled to France. Henry II had his son Henry the Young King crowned by Becket's enemy, the Archbishop of York. Now, the Archbishop of York and the Archbishop of Canterbury were very much enemies at the time. It was the East Coast, West Coast of the High Middle Ages. It was a two-pack biggie of 12th century England. There was drive-by shootings, but they were on horseback and used swords. There was diss tracks, but they were sermons, not actual tracks. They had unauthorized samples of each other's hymns. Awful business. Also, Henry's son was called Henry the Young King.
Mm-hmm.
Quite rubbish, isn't it?
It is, because you'd think you'd go for the obvious one, wouldn't you? Henry III.
Unless that was like too much of an imposition on the fact that he was already ruling, because Henry the Young King was the only king that was at this time who was crowned while his dad was still alive and being the king. So I guess that's why the distinction was made. But it's still a rubbish name. It's like if you were named after your dad or mum in this naming format, what would your name be, Kath?
I would be, I guess, Catherine the Young Sign Writer.
What kind of signs?
Whatever kind of sign you want making.
Or like stop.
I guess he could make you a stop sign if you want. One time, we had some builders. I lived in a basement flat and we had some builders working on the house upstairs. And they kept pissing into, 2-litre bottles. They'd piss into them because there were no toilet facilities available. And I guess they did have to go somewhere. But so I've not really got a problem with that. But then they would leave 2 litres of builder piss outside of our house. So I got my dad to make a sign of a man pissing with a big line through it and put it in the kitchen window. And I'll be honest, they still did. But I made an effort.
No respect for signs.
No.
No respect for signs. And therefore no respect for your dad's legacy.
No.
Absolutely appalling. Yeah, so there's this Henry the Young King. Presumably he's like a work experience king, just like making tea, franking mail, doing all the stuff the actual king doesn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
This pisses off Becket because he should have been the one to crown him. Becket asks the Pope to have a word with Henry. Henry agrees to restore Tom rights as the Archbishop of Canterbury again. And this is where it all kicks off, because basically Henry says out loud, and this is according to a Becket biographer, the actual words are disputed, but what happened as a result of the words are absolutely not. Henry said something along the lines of, "What miserable drones and traitors have I nurtured and promoted in my household, who let their lord be treated with such shameful contempt by a lowborn clerk? Who will rid me of this turbulent priest?"
I'm the king. Will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?
What happened next? And this, you might be familiar with this, because I was when I heard this, I was sort of vaguely familiar with it. 4 knights heard him say this and went, "We'll deal with this."
Your wish is our command.
Exactly. But I don't think they told the king they were going to do it. They just went, "We're knights. This is what we do." They went to Canterbury, where Tom was, and they had a bit of skirmish, and they chopped off the crown off Tom's head. As in the crown of his head, not he wasn't wearing a crown. They chopped his crown off.
Oh my god!
That's why he's got the old knife through his head in his Tinder profile, in his betrothed profile pic, Kath.
Well, that makes sense. But also, can you imagine if he was just wandering around in the king's crown? I don't see why this would annoy anyone. It looks great on me.
Yeah, exactly. As if he hadn't pissed him off enough. It's like, are you wearing my shit? Give me my shit back.
Hey, and are they my trainers? So I think as well my issue with this is, first of all, why did he keep fucking off to France if he wanted shit here? Second, what kind of arsehole just goes running off to the Pope all the time? And also, as a Pope, why would you just be like, 1, who are you? 2, go away. Just fucking deal with it. Like, why are you bringing this shit to my door?
Well, the Pope, he's the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he's sort of his main man in the British Isles, isn't he? So,
but there are loads of people that are Catholic at this time, no doubt. So can you imagine trying to keep hold of, keep track of all the beef? Just trying to keep track of who's fallen out with who. Take your Jeremy Kyle disagreement and fuck off, is what I would say as the Pope.
This is why you're probably going to be the next Pope, Kath, because that's exactly the kind of attitude that they're looking for to replace Pope Francis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing. This wasn't a Jeremy Kyle style dispute. This was there was a thing at the time called I think it was called the Gregorian Revolution, and it was based around the church wanting a certain amount of powers for itself, and this whole episode of the king wanting to, like, you know, shut down the power of the church and get more power for himself in legal matters, is all part of the same thing. And this is sort of why the king was like, who will rid me of this turbulent priest? Because he was like, I'm supposed to be the king, and I've got to, like, you know, dance for this bloody priest. It's annoying him, isn't it? He says, who will rid me of this turbulent priest? They go off and do it. And, you know, you've got to be careful with your wording, haven't you? It's like with a work email. You know, you got to read it back before you hit send.
Yeah.
You got to think before you speak, you know. If you don't do that, before you know it, you're emailing your work saying who wants to have some work dicks instead of work drinks. And then you're just the laughingstock of the office. And that's what happened here. He said something, people took it literally, and someone died.
And suddenly there's a load of dicks in his court. And he's like, oh, what?
Yeah, exactly. Like, where am I? Am I in Pompeii again? Exactly. He was murdered, and there was, like, blood all over the altar where he was murdered. And after his death, an extraordinary wave of miracles was recorded in and around the site, all across the globe, people seeing images of Thomas Becket. And it meant that the Pope canonized him, made him a saint, a mere 3 years after his death. Becket's reputation as a miracle-working saint spread quickly, and people from all over Europe started to flock to Canterbury in the hope that they would be healed. As well as visiting the tomb, pilgrims could also purchase a mixture of his blood and water called St. Thomas's water, which was bottled and sold by opportunistic monks in small lead vessels called ampulla. Henry II, in a public act of penance for his involvement in the murder, visited the tomb in 74, granting royal approval to Becket's cult. So what I like about this is, have you ever been to a Catholic apparition site, Kath?
I can't say that I have, actually. I don't know.
I've not been to one. I've been to two.
Wow.
I've been to Lourdes, and I've been to this other one that I can't remember the name of in the Balkans. So what happens is some teenage girl usually will go, oh, I saw the Virgin Mary, and then it becomes this pilgrimage site. What the other thing they have in common is they're full of tat, just cheap plastic tat based. Like, you can buy, like, Virgin Mary lighters. You know what I mean? You can buy, my friend genuinely, when he was 15, bought for his dad a knife, a bread knife, in which the handle was the Virgin Mary.
Oh my God.
And which his dad threw out when he gave it to him because it was awful. And I kind of like that that's sort of happening already here. They're selling these bottled St. Thomas's water. They've probably got penknives with with where the knife is the knife going through Thomas's head.
Yeah.
They've all got all that stuff's going on back then.
It is, and I just think it's insane whether you've got ill people turning up being like, please cure me, every day of my life is pain. Here, don't worry, drink a stranger's blood out of this lead bottle.
Don't they know about AIDS? God. He remained a cult hero for 300 years until Henry VIII decided he was a prick, destroyed his shrine, and tried to wipe him from history, which is actually a proper cancellation. He's like, if Becket was alive at the time, he'd no doubt he would have had a Netflix special like that.
He would have, immediately.
Exactly.
Really hack one.
I mean, I would argue that, you know, his death was probably the main cancellation. Death is the ultimate cancellation, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I think that you can't claim to be cancelled unless somebody has gone into your workplace and cut the top of your head off. In which case, fair fucks, you've been cancelled. Otherwise, shut up.
Yeah, shut up, Gervais. You ain't got a knife in your head. You're doing all right. The news of Becket's miracle spread like wildfire. According to historicuk.com, Brother William and Prior Benedict, two monks, were appointed to keep a book which documented the miracles that took place while the visitors were at Thomas Becket's tomb. 2 questions. How many miracles do you think have to be recorded in your name for the Catholic Church to make you a saint?
See, my initial guess would be really high, but actually, I reckon it's
a miracle.
Yeah, it's a miracle, right? So I think 1 would be enough.
2.
Oh, okay, because 1 could be a fluke, 2 proves you can do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you don't make someone the team captain in football just based on 1 goal.
Yeah, it could be beginner's luck, right?
Yeah. Second goal, you can be captain. 2, Catholic, is how many you need to become a saint. How many do you think were recorded as happening in relation to Becket's death?
Jeez. 4.
703.
Oh my God. So, because you said that they were worldwide as well, right?
People would go there for miracles, but I think people were seeing him all over the world.
But did those people know who he was?
Yeah, because it's interesting. Well, that's a good point.
Oh, was he like, I am, and please tell the Pope that Thomas T-H or
Yeah.
Thomas Becket.
No, you didn't have to do that, Kath. Why? What's the distinguishing feature he has? That means people just know when they see
Was
him.
he wearing a
Oh,
T-shirt with his name?
Better than that.
Did he have a dagger in his head?
He had a dagger in his head.
Uh-huh.
That's how they know. It's like, oh, who could that be? It's Zany Tom and his bloody plastic sword hats that he wears on dates. I'm going to list 6 miracles. 3 of them are actual miracles attributed to the shrine of Thomas Becket, and 3 I've made up.
Okay.
And you, Kath, have to tell me which ones I've made up.
Oh my god, perfect. Okay, let's go.
1. The curing of leprosy.
I'm going to say that's real.
Correct. 2. The sudden duplication of a nearby cow.
I'm going to say yeah as well, because there could just have been 2 cows, but one could have been behind a tree.
Exactly. And it also could have been from his shit zoo that he used to have.
True.
It's fake. I made that up. The curing of blindness,
I mean, yeah, that's got to be true, right?
obviously. The Virgin Mary appeared drunk and slurred. Sorry, wrong apparition site.
I am going to say that one's false.
Yeah, that sounds like I made it up, and I did. The curing of paralysis.
True.
Yep. And Christ appeared shortly after the appearance of Mary and said, "Has anyone seen my mum?"
I'm going to say false.
Balls. Yeah. You did all right there. You got the sudden duplication wrong, but apart from that, pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
BBC Bitesides have a fun graphic charting the relationship of Henry II and Becket. It's like a bar graph that dips when they're enemies and then rises when they're friends.
Aw.
It's quite fun. I've actually set one up for our friendship, Kath.
Yeah.
It's currently quite high because we're both excited about this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But when one of us gets more successful than the other and moves to America to present a late night chat show, it's going to dip into enemies.
Yeah.
And I'm very much looking forward to that period.
Oh, it's gonna
even
be
though
great.
it'll probably be you that does the chat show. But anyway.
Historical hot or not?
Where are you at? We have the Bayo Tap That history, which we're going to embroider. All the people in history we decided bang-worthy are going to get embroidered onto this thing, and then it'll be put up in a museum in northern France for people to look at for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So is the first person on the Bayo Tap That history, is it going to be Thomas Becket? Kath, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I absolutely love your pun that you've come up with. It's my favourite thing about this podcast.
Can you tell comedy promoters that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers. 'Cause I could do with a bit more live work, but go on.
So I'll be honest with you. From looking at his picture, it was a no, but a photograph or painting, it's not a 3D view of a person,
Exactly.
is it? So I always think it's a bit unfair to just judge someone from a picture.
Because sexual attraction is not just physical. We do make an initial judgment on these apps, but it's not like if they're just fit, that's going to lead to something. You don't have to assess the personality.
Yeah, exactly. And there's different things like their gait or their smell or their confidence, the way they hold themselves, their personality.
Well, it was your smell that when we went on that date, Kath, was the reason it didn't go any further.
I shouldn't have worn that fish perfume, but
Yeah,
you live and learn.
And I know you think it was you going, "Oh, you can't believe you don't drink," but no, it was the stench, the absolute stench of the woman.
I should have showered. Learning about his life, he didn't redeem himself to me at all. I assumed that he would be a better person, foolishly, because he was a part of the church, but actually the church has time and time again proven that they're not always good. He ran away when the going got tough.
Yeah.
He couldn't keep his mouth shut at the right times. I feel like they're 2 very big qualities that you want in a person.
Are you not attracted to his, "I'm going to stand up to this king who selfishly wants us"? Is that not hot?
Well, yeah, it is. Standing up for what you believe in is hot. However, it was in self-interest, because it's like, I don't want to have to obey by the rules that everybody else does. If it was like, I'm going to stand up against the king and get him to stop killing children to sport, then I'd be like, you know what, fair fucks, pal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was like, I want special treatment. Fuck off.
Good shout. And also there's a sort of, the dichotomy, I think, in terms of, say, if I was choosing whether I'd bang Becket, he's like quite ostentatious in showing off his wealth and
Yeah.
stuff, his shih tzu, all that kind of thing. And then actually, when he realizes that's bad, he goes way too much the other way and becomes a full teetotaler ascetic. So actually, at the point you're like, oh, maybe I would bang this guy. Actually, he's like, I don't want to bang you because I'm not into that shit anymore. So it's like, you can't win with the guy.
No, I guess that's right, isn't it? He overcorrects.
Exactly. It's like if you tell a child to be quiet and then they don't speak for like a day to make a point. So you're like, no, you've overcorrected now.
Exactly.
Stop being silly.
Yeah. Do you want fish fingers or chicken nuggets for tea?
Exactly. And if there's anyone I absolutely will not have sex with, it's children. I've always said that.
As a rule.
And I want it on record on this podcast.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that goes for both of us.
Well, you said you dated an 18-year-old before.
When I was 18.
You've already revealed yourself.
Would you tap him?
No, for the aforementioned reason. I think at the point he becomes attractive, he does not want to bang you. And again, there's nothing more unattractive than a lack of consent, is there? At least as far as I go. So I, on balance, quite like him, but I don't think I'd bang him. So the Bayo Tap That history will remain vacant for another week.
It will. We're off to go and drink each other's blood out of lead-lined vessels.
Yep. We've had a blood test. We haven't got AIDS, so we're clear on
one
that
of us
front.
hasn't.
What?
Wow, okay, no, can we cut...
By process of elimination, that means...
Can we cut it out where I wrongly told the world that I've got a blood-borne illness? Because I haven't.
No. We'll leave it
Okay,
in.
fair enough.
Thanks for listening to Historical Hot or Not. It went very weird at the end there. Arguably, the whole thing's a bit weird, but hey, we're owning it. Goodbye, and tune in next week where Kath is going to propose to me, a historical figure, and I'll decide whether I want to bang him or not. Do you want to say bye, Kath?
As Thomas Becket would say, au revoir.
Kath, let's go down to the chemist to get those retrovirals.
You have been listening to Historical Hot or Not. If you'd like to contribute, we would fucking love that. So you can find us, we're at Ko-fi, buy us a coffee. Don't send it to us personally, it'll be cold by then. But it's ko-fi.com/hotnotpod. Send us some coffee, not real coffee, send us the money for coffee. Episodes written by Aidan McCaffrey and Catherine Mather. Our wonderful logo is by Richard Todd, and all music by David Eagle.